안녕하세요. 오늘은 오랜만에 평일에 쉬고 있습니다. 네, 굉장히 오랜만에 휴식을 취하고 있고 저는 저희 집에 안방이죠. 네, 안방에서 에어컨을 켜고 조금 여유로운 시간을 보내고 있습니다. 현재 시각이 6시가 넘었는데도 그럼에도 불구하고 해가 쨍쨍합니다. 네, 여름에 들어왔다는 거겠죠. 그래서 오늘 뭔가 돈을 쓰고 싶은 욕구가 엄청 많은데 그 욕구를 잠재우고 저 소비 중독이죠. 매일매일 살면서 이제 소비 중독이 돼가고 있는 게 있어서 이게 나을 것 같은데 소비 중독 상태에 있는데도 불구하고 또 오늘 꼭 참고 집에서 책을 읽으면서 시간을 보내고 있었습니다. 굉장히 이제 어떻게 보면 쓸쓸하기도 한데 여기서 이렇게 떠들어주는 사람이 있기 때문에 또 제가 오늘 하루를 풍부하게 살아갈 수 있는 것 같습니다. 네, 그러면 오랜만에 이제 스티븐 핑커의 Enlightment 나오죠. 이거 예전에 읽다가 이제 망한 게 있는데 그거를 또 한번 쭉 읽어보는 시간을 가지려고 합니다. 오늘 읽어볼 이제 페이지는요. 정치 말고 거의 한 6개월 만에 이 책을 피게 된 것 같아요. 이 책을 한 번씩 펼 때면 내가 과연 죽기 전까지 이 책을 이해할 수 있을까라는 생각이 들지만 그래도 뭐 계속해서 노력해야죠. 오늘 읽어볼 부분은 2,000원 낸 진짜 엄청나요. 네, 제가 지금까지 살면서 봤던 책 중에서 가장 깊이가 있는 책이라고 봐야죠. 네, 제가 읽어볼 부분은 Counter Enlightenments라는 부분을 한번 읽어보도록 하겠습니다. Chapter 3 Counter Enlightenments. Who could be against reason, science, humanism, or progress? The words seem saturnine, the ideas unexpectionable. They define the missions of all the institutions of modernity: schools, hospitals, charities, youth agencies, democratic governments, international organizations. Do these ideas really need a defense? They absolutely do. Since the 1960s, trust in the institutions of modernity has sunk, and the second decade of the 21st century saw the rise of populist movements that blatantly repudiate the ideas of the Enlightenment. They are tribalist rather than cosmopolitan, authoritarian rather than democratic, contemptuous of experts rather than respectful of knowledge, and nostalgic for an idyllic past rather than hopeful for a better future. But these reactions are by no means confined to 21st century political populism. a movement we will examine in chapters 20 and 23. Far from sprouting from the grassroots or channeling the anger of know-nothings, the disdain for reason, science, humanism, and progress has a long pedigree in elite intellectual and artistic culture. Indeed, a common criticism of the Enlightenment project that it is a Western invention unsuited to the world in all its diversity is doubly wrong-headed. For one thing, our ideas have to come from somewhere, and their birthplace has no bearing on their merit. Though many Enlightenment ideas were articulated in their clearest and most influential form in 8th century Europe and America. They are rooted in reason and human nature, so any reasoning human can engage with them. That's why Enlightenment ideas have been articulated in non-Western civilization and many times in history. But my main reaction to the claim that the Enlightenment is the guiding idea of the West is, if only, the Enlightenment was swiftly followed by a counter-enlightenment, and the West has been divided ever since. 어려워요. 읽기. No sooner did people step into the light than they were advised that darkness wasn't so bad after all, that they should stop daring to understand so much, that dogmas and formulas deserved another chance, and that human nature's destiny was not progress but decline. The Romantic movement pushed back particularly hard against Enlightenment ideas. Lucius, John Herder, Friedrich Schelling, and others denied that reason could be separated from emotion, that individuals could be considered apart from their culture, that people should provide reason for their acts, that values applied across times and places, and that place and prosperity were desirable, and a human is part of organic whole. A culture, race, nation, religion, spirit were his historical force, and people should creatively channel the transcendent unity of which they are a part. Heroic struggle, not the solving of problems, is the greatest good, and violence is inherent to nature and cannot be stifled without draining life of its vitality. There are but three groups worth of respect, wrote Charles Baudelaire, the priest, the warrior, and the poet: to know, to care, and to create. It sounds mad, but in the 21st century, the counter-enlightenment ideas contribute to be found across a surprising range of elite culture and intellectual movements. The notion that we should apply our collective reason to enhance flourishing and reduce suffering is considered crass, naive, wimpy, scared. Let me introduce some of the popular alternatives to reason, science, humanism, and progress. they will reappear in other chapters, and in part of 3 of book I will confront them head on. The most obvious is religion's faith. To take something on faith means to believe it without good reason. So, by definition, of faith in the existence of supernatural entities clashes with reason. Religions also commonly clash with humanism whenever they elevate some moral good above the well-being of humans, such as accepting a divine savior, ratifying a sacred narrative, enforcing rituals and taboos, proselytizing other people to do the same, and punishing or demonizing those who don't. Religions can also clash with humanism by valuing souls above life, which is not as uplifting as it sounds. Belief in an earth afterlife implies that health and happiness are not such a big deal, because life on earth is an infinitesimal portion of one's existence, that coercing people into accepting salvation is doing them a favor, and that martyrdom may be the best thing that can ever happen to you. As for incompatibilities with science, these are the stuff of legend and current events, from Galileo and the Scopes monkey trial to stem cell research and climate change. A second counter-enlightenment idea is that people are the expandables cells of superorganism, a clan, tribe, ethnic group, religion, race, class, or nation, and that the supreme good is the glory of this collective is it rather than the well-being of the people who make it up. An obvious example is nationalism, in which the superorganism is the nation-state, namely an ethnic group with a government. We see the clash between nationalism and humanism in morbid patriotic slogans like "Dearth and decorum est pro mori." Sweet and right it is to die for your country, and happy those who, with a glowing faith in one embrace, class, death, and victory. Even John F. Kennedy, less gruesome, asked not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Makes the tension clear. Nationalism should not be confused with civic values, public spirit, social responsibility, or cultural pride. Humans are a social species, and the well-being of every individual depend on patterns of cooperation and harmony that span a community. When a nation is conceived as a tacit social contract among people sharing a territory, like a condominium association, it is an essential means for advancing its members' flourishing, and of course it is genuinely admirable for one individual to sacrifice his or her interests for those of many individuals. It's quite another thing when a person is forced to make the supreme sacrifice for the benefit of a charismatic leader, a scare of clothes or colors on a map. Nor is it all sweet and right to clasp death in order to prevent a province from seceding, expand a sphere of influence, or carry out an irredentist crusades. Religion and nationalism are signature causes of political conservatism and continue to affect the fate of billions of people in the countries under their influence. Many left-wing colleagues who learned that I was writing a book on reason and humanism in egged me on, relishing the prospect of an arsenal of 13 points against the right. But not so long ago, the left was sympathetic to nationalism when it was fused with Marxist liberation movements. And many on the left encourage identity politicians and social justice workers who downplay individual rights in favor of equalizing the standing of races, classes, and genders, which they see as being pitted in jarring competition. Religion to has defenders on both halves of the political spectrum. Even writers who are unwilling to defend the literal content of religions believe may be fiercely defensive of religion and hostile to the idea that science and reason have anything to say about morality. Most of them show little awareness that humanism even exists. Defenders of the faith insist that religion has the exclusive franchise for questions about what matters. Where 여기까지 좀 읽도록 하겠습니다. 너무 어렵죠.